You're listening to the Street Smart Wealth Experience, show number 349, and today we're talking about fear and failure in your business and in life. Show notes can be found at 349.streetsmartwealth.me. Welcome to today's show. I'm Jackie Ulmer, and as I've been doing recently, I am taking advantage of live calls to create my podcast, create a YouTube video, as well as Facebook Lives. So if you have not liked my business page on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/streetsmartwealth. If you'd like to get in on the live videos, make sure that you are signed up on my email broadcast list. You can go to streetsmartwealth.me and you'll find the opt-in there so that you get all of the announcements on the updates. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of changes coming in my business. If you listen to my previous podcast, 348, you learned a little bit about that. Just kind of my progression in business over the last, since really almost 26 years of being in business, how life and growth takes you to different places in your business. And I'm doing a lot of personal coaching in terms of business confidence, comparison, just really building confidence in general, because I found that so many people struggle with that in their lives and it affects them in their business. So if you haven't gotten my confidence video series, you can go to confidencedecoded.com and grab that. It's a 4-part video series to begin with, and actually there's more added to it from there. But my goal really is to help people really shift out of the negative thinking and the negative thought processes that we often have about ourselves, our unworthiness, comparing ourselves to others on social media, thinking that we don't measure up, all those different things that really derail us in our businesses. So that's the goal behind that. And it's shifting a lot of my coaching and training. And I'm honestly just trying to figure myself out in terms of, do I need another business page? Am I going to launch a separate podcast that's strictly about confidence? Kind of what to do with all of that. And my goal is that as I walk along this path and this journey, that hopefully I can help you with that too, building your brand, building your awareness, building your audience and your tribe, and allowing yourself the latitude to have changes that happen in your life and happen in your business, because that is the reality of life. So just wanted to share that with you. And now we will get into today's training on fears and failure and how we can move to overcome those. All right, so hello. I'm Jackie Ulmer, and welcome to today's training call where we are talking about fear and failure. So whether you're watching the replay or on with me live, you're always welcome to ask questions in the chat box if you're on live, or certainly below the video, depending on where you're watching it. Would love to get any questions answered that you have. Couple of housekeeping things that are going on. So this week we're talking about fear and failure. Next week I'm going to be shifting the call to Mondays, because Mondays are just a better fit for me. I have that whole day blocked for marketing and it just tends to fit better. So we'll be shifting the call, and probably the time an hour later in the day, actually maybe 2 hours later in the day. I'm working on that, but you'll be getting an email broadcast on that. But next week we're going to be covering specifically a morning routine and planning out your marketing strategy for 2020. I love the sound of that. I hope you love the sound of that too. And then the following week, we'll be talking about choosing your focus word. I'm really big on choosing a focus word. My word for 2019 was mastering practice, which was really all about knowing those action steps that we take every day in our business, every day in our life, and mastering the practice of staying consistent with those, tracking what works, tweaking, changing what we need to, but really being consistent enough with that we get a baseline for where we are headed. And then for the following week, we're going to talk about a year in review and how to do all of that, how to really look back at your year and see where your strengths were, weaknesses, so that you can again begin to plan for the next year. All right. My Facebook page, facebook.com/Street Smart Wealth. I'm probably going to be switching to that platform and doing Facebook Live in there for these calls, capture the recording. And again, part of what I do is really to teach you how to get the most out of your marketing time and, put as much possible into it, the least amount of time so that it works for you over and over again. And this is a great way to multi-purpose content. An example of, I'm recording this live. I will have an audio version. I'll have a video version. It will go on YouTube. It'll go on my blog. It'll go on Facebook. It'll go on my podcast. So I'm able to get the content out there and use it over and over again so that I reach people in all different areas using social media. I'll drive people to it from my offline networking. And again, just be thinking of those things as you put together your own strategies for doing all that. All right, so let's get into fear and failure. It's interesting. We all have thoughts around fear and failure, and a lot of our fears revolve around that word failure. And fear is an interesting word. It encompasses a lot. If we're procrastinating doing something, typically if we really dig down to the root of it, it has to do with some type of fear that we have. And really, when you think about it, all fear is rooted in one of two things. It's either rooted in a past experience, something that we've experienced from the past that we have a negative association with. We feel negative emotion when we think about it, or it's something that we're projecting into the future, a fear of something that might happen based on whatever it is we do, some course of action. So the interesting thing is, I don't know what's sticking to my lip, we're not really born with fear. Fear is not something that we're born with, other than that startle reflex that most babies are born with, that fear of falling. That's about the only fear that we have when we come into the world. And failure isn't in our vocabulary. When you stop and think about it as a child, we think we're invincible. We truly believe that we can do anything. We believe that we're limitless. And we haven't let any negative experiences, thoughts, words from those around us or our environment persuade us. We think we can be an astronaut. We think we can be Wonder Woman. We can be Superman. We can be President of the United States. We can really, truly do anything that we want. And somewhere along the line, we get derailed from that. And I like to dig down into what the cause of that is, and then how we can course correct. Because the reality of it is the past doesn't equal the future. And if we really begin to focus on our mind, focus on the thoughts that we have, the emotions that come up with those thoughts, and trace that back to our past, we can typically reprogram things. I do not know what's driving me crazy. Anyway, we can typically reprogram things so that we move forward in a positive way. So the definition of fear, and I'm going to read it to you. Fear is an unpleasant emotion based on the belief that there is danger, pain, or threat, and that it's imminent. So when you think about that, most of our fears are irrational, because true fear is based around, back in the day, back in the primal days, caveman days, all of that was really based around survival. So whether it was a wild animal trying to attack us, or a flood coming, or a fire, or whatever it was, our fear was really rooted in that. We didn't necessarily have fear back then that we would never find food or any of that type thing. It was really based on survival. So when you think about that, that's really one of the only things that could truly kill us, is that type of fear. Emotion, even the absolute worst emotion that we can think of, won't kill us. And when you really think about it, we all have the ability to survive the absolute worst thing that we can think of happening. Now, I'm not going to try to say that it's easy. I'm not trying to say that terrible things don't happen. The death of someone, the death of a child, the death of someone close to us. There are a lot of terrible things that happen in the world. But the bottom line is, most of us, almost all of us truly have the ability to survive that worst emotion that we feel. And emotions aren't real. They're strictly feelings. So when we come into fear from the past, something from the past, it's kind of one of those things where we have to ask, is it real? Is it happening now? Why am I feeling this emotion? What's it based on? And so I like to project that into our business and business actions that we're taking, and what we're doing to move our businesses forward. Very often we launch a business and we have fears around the marketing aspect of it, whether it's social media, putting something out on social media, doing a video, whatever it is that involves social media and that marketing aspect. Maybe we make a list and we want to let people know about our business. We have fears around that type thing. So what I really want to encourage you to do is take an inventory of your fears, all of those things that hold you back in your business and in your life. What are those fears? Write them down. And then as you write them down, you can begin to write in an emotion around them. So I like to write out all my fears in the different areas of my life too. So what are my business fears? When I think of putting my business out there, do I fear rejection? Do I fear hearing the word no? Do I fear social shame or loss of social status? I did an interview in the network marketing space with Mark Yarnell years ago. I should post that in this. I should look up what the episode is, but it's great because he talks about the loss of social status. And that's one of the fears that we have, is that we're going to talk to somebody about our business and they're going to say no. And in some way, it's going to cost us some social status with them. So we have to think about those kind of things. And we fear failure, certainly with our business. What are those fears that we have in our relationships? We want to write all of that out. And then again, when you feel a fear, you want to ask yourself, what is the emotion that I'm currently feeling? What emotion am I experiencing? Is it real? Is it happening now? Or am I reflecting back on something from the past? Or am I reflecting forward on something that I perceive might happen in the future? And then another great question is, what if it did happen? What if that really, that fear that I have, that emotion, that experience, what if that really did come to happen? What's the worst thing that I could experience from that? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how does that emotion feel? How would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst feeling? And even as a 10, could that feeling really, really kill me? How badly could it truly affect me? So I like to say, whatever happens to me in any given situation, I can handle it. And I also like to use the mantra, whatever's happening to me is happening for me. So in every opportunity, whether it's fear, a negative emotion, an experience that happens, all of that is a learning and growing opportunity for us. And if we make that slight shift in how we begin to view fear and failure and no and rejection, or whatever emotions we want to put to that, when we can begin to shift our experience of it and not take it on personally, that if somebody says no to us in our business or whatever, or says something negative on social media or whatever, that it's not really a direct reflection on us or what we're doing or anything, along those lines. So if we really stop and take the time to evaluate what's going on, we can begin to shift that paradigm. We can begin to see things in a whole different way. So really dealing with fear ahead of time, knowing now, looking back, that all fear from the past is something that we've already handled. And if we can shift our brains and reprogram the way that we think about it, we can change the way that we experience that going into the future. So that's a big, big part of it. So we want to begin to re-educate our minds on how we allow fear to affect us, and whether we're, again, reflecting on the past or projecting it into the future. The reality of it is, fear is a fact of life. It doesn't matter where you are on the business scale, success scale, or whatever. I've listened to 8-figure income earners, Brendan Burchard, one that comes to mind, big internet marketer, and every single time before he launches something new, he goes into fear mode. What if nobody buys it? What if it flops? What if this? So it doesn't really matter what your level of success. Fear is just a part of life. And the more we can accept that and settle in with it and allow that to ourselves to feel that emotion, but push through that fear regardless, asking ourselves the reverse question, what if the worst happened, but at the same time, what if the absolute best happened too? So there are essentially 3 levels of fear, and we're going to go through those 3 levels. Level number 1 are the facts, facts and action fears, and that's kind of what I talked about in the beginning. Things that we don't control. That is aging, children leaving home, death, dying, natural disasters. Those are all kind of the facts of life and fears that are absolutely normal and that we're all going to experience in life. And there's nothing we can do about those except control our emotions around them. Doesn't mean that we don't feel that fear and experience that fear, but at some point we have to make a choice as to whether we're going to allow that to affect us into the future. Those things are inevitable and they're out of our control. Level 2 fears are those action type fears that we have to experience and take action on and decide what we're going to do with them. And a fear along those lines would be perceived rejection, success. We have fear around success, failure, disapproval, loss of self-image, those type things. So when we look at that level 2 type of fear, we have to ask ourselves, how will I accept this, handle with this, deal with this now and into the future if this comes along? And then level 3 fears really come down to one thing, and that is, I can't handle this. We have a fear that we can't handle something that's going to happen. And when you think about it, whether it be in your business or relationship or different things that you deal with in life, that's really our number 1 fear, those level 3 fears. And that is, I won't be able to handle it. But again, there's no emotion, no matter how strong it is, that we don't have the ability to survive and thrive through and move beyond. So when we think about some of those fears, I won't be able to handle rejection. I won't be able to handle someone's negative comment on social media. I won't be able to handle the death of a loved one. I won't be able to handle whatever it is. And the reality of it is we do have the capacity to handle it. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't terrible things that happen, but when we begin to shift our thoughts to how we evaluate things and look at things, we see it in a different way. And the bottom line is beginning to really trust ourselves that we have the capacity to not only handle it and deal with it, but to shift the way we allow it to dictate itself into our future actions. Because, it's our thoughts that create our feelings, and our feelings create our actions. So when we're down in negative thoughts and negative feelings, that typically stunts our growth in terms of taking actions. And at the end of that, that's what creates our results. Okay, results don't just show up because we wish for them to. They show up as a result of our actions, positive or negative. When you look back in your calendar, that's one thing I like to do. I track everything. I look back in my calendar for the day, for the week, for the month, and I ask myself, do I rate this day, week, month as a success or failure? Why or why not? And I can typically look back at my actions that I took and determine whether it was a success or a failure. Now, we can take action and not control the outcome. We don't control if someone says yes or they buy or a lot of those different type things. But, day to day, week to week, if we're constantly planting those seeds, we know that the harvest can't be prevented and we ultimately will have those successes, especially in our business. So, I think the bottom line is really changing that mantra. It's kind of like I said, what happens to me is happening for me. So anytime I feel like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? It's so negative, whatever. If I can shift that to say everything that happens to me is happening for me, and there's a positive around that. Now, there are 5 truths around fear too. And truth number 1 is some degree of fear is never going to go away. It's those life circumstances, things that are going to happen. We're going to age. We're going to have illness. We're going to experience deaths. We're going to experience no's and shutdowns and different things in our business. But so some of those things are never going to go away. Truth number 2 is that the only way to overcome fear sometimes is to just get out there and be in action mode. Okay, if fear can keep us stunted in non-action, but when we can just push through that and take a little bit of action, regardless of what that is, then we move ourselves forward. Yesterday was a great example for me. I was looking at a to-do list that was so long, it was crazy, and I was feeling overwhelmed, which is a type of fear. I was feeling frustrated. I was having a challenge sorting my priority list, and I just remembered that every day, no matter what, I'm going to be taking action in my business. So I just made a decision to pick one thing off of that list and get into action with it, knowing that that would provide a pathway for me to be into bigger action. And sure enough, I actually burned the midnight oil last night, checking off a whole lot of other things on my to-do list, because just being in action created some ideas and created that forward momentum to move, that definitely moved me forward. So sometimes the only way to get out of fear is just to get into action. And again, truth number 3 about fear is one of the only ways to begin to feel better about that fear is also to be in action. So getting in action gets you unstuck and out of that, and it begins to make you feel better about yourselves. And we can get in this spin cycle of negative thoughts, negative feelings, no action, and no results. And so then we get into this paradigm of beating ourselves up and thinking, I'm never going to be successful at this, which just creates more negative thoughts and more negative feelings and more lack of action, and certainly not the results that we want. Truth number 4 is that discomfort is okay. Okay? Discomfort is a part of life. Discomfort is not a sign that you shouldn't be feeling. It's necessary for growth. You've heard it said before that all growth and success happens outside of your comfort zone, and that really is true. We almost always have to get into some form of discomfort to have success. Even if it's something as far back as starting a new job, most of us would agree that first day on the job, when we walk in, we don't know anybody, that can be a form of discomfort. If we're going to go out networking and begin to talk about our business, when we have to get out of the car and actually walk in and walk up and meet somebody, that can be a form of discomfort. But it's developing that muscle and it's developing that skill set and staying with it no matter what that's going to create that success for us. So remember, discomfort is a key to success. It's a key to busting through fear. And then the truth number 5 is pushing through that fear ultimately creates less discomfort than staying stuck in the fear. It goes back to, again, that negative spin cycle, that negative cycle of staying stuck in the fear, and then we beat ourselves up, we have worse thoughts, worse feelings, and before long we throw in the towel and we don't create the success that we want in any aspect of our business. So bottom line is, fear really and truly is not the problem. It's how we process the feeling of fear and whether or not we choose to hold on to it. So it's like anything, you want to begin to shift your self-talk. And I've been talking about this a lot. My feeling of where things like The Secret and a lot of these self-help type areas where I feel like they kind of got it wrong. And that is affirmations are great. Reciting mantras are great. Those I am statements, all of that is great and they're important and I'm a big fan of them. But ultimately, you have to begin to make change. You have to be out there taking that action. You have to be willing to push beyond that fear and take action in spite of the fear. So you want to change some of your thoughts and some of your word choices. So when you're stuck in that negative cycle, change I can't to I won't. And what I mean by that is it's all a choice. When you say I can't do something, that is reinforcing in your subconscious mind that you don't have the ability to. I won't shifts it to I am currently choosing not to do it. And even though that pushes all responsibility back on us, it's that responsibility and taking ownership of that that ultimately begins to shift our brain pattern and our thinking to, okay, it's not that I can't, it's that I won't. And knowing that I won't is what's keeping me stuck. So then the goal is then to get to, I will, even though I have fear, I'm going to take some action steps. And then another one to change is I should to I could. So instead of I should be doing this, because you never want to should on yourself, that doesn't feel good. You can shift that to I could be doing this. And then ultimately I choose to be doing this. And then another word phrase to shift is from it's not my fault again, dwelling on something negative from the past, we have a tendency to say, well, it's not my fault because this happened. Yes, it's true, but at some point we have to change that to this happened and I'm choosing to take full responsibility for how I'm handling it today, for how I'm either allowing it to keep me stuck or I'm pushing beyond it and moving forward. The reality of it is things happen. We can't change it. What we can do is change our thoughts and feelings around it into the future and moving forward. Change thinking that life's a struggle, business is a struggle, success is a struggle, to thinking it's an adventure, because it really truly is. It's an adventure, and the more fun that you can interject into what you're doing, the more you can play games with yourself and make it fun and detach from that outcome, the more success ultimately that you'll have. And then thinking, always go into everything thinking this is a learning experience. So if it's a rejection and you think, oh, this is terrible or this doesn't feel good, always begin to think of it instead of that, think of it as a learning experience for you. So just some recaps. Go through and make an inventory, make a list of all of the fears that you can come up with, all of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you associate with all the areas of your life, whether it's your business, whether it's marketing, whether it's relationships, whatever it is, whether it's health and fitness, whatever it is, make a list of all your fears, all your thoughts and feelings, negative emotions, and your points of resistance. Points of resistance are really, really big, because when you start feeling that negative thought around anything and you can journal out and write out, okay, I want to be doing this, but I'm feeling negative about it. What are those points of resistance? What is it that has you feeling resistance? Is it that you feel like you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, technology has you stumped? Write all of those points of resistance out, because then you can systematically go through and work through those, because everything is figure outable. Everything. There's not anything, whether it's a good script, a way to position yourself and your offer, whether it's, how to put a video up on YouTube. I was working with a client recently who was really struggling with that. The whole reason she wasn't doing videos is because she realized she was having a hard time getting it out of her phone into her computer to edit it, and then ultimately onto YouTube, and how to do all that. And almost everything you want to learn or do is a YouTube video away, really and truly. You can Google and find almost anything on YouTube. So be very clear on your points of resistance and what those things are that are keeping you stuck. All right, that's what I had to share today. A couple of things. I've really been working on my confidence series. So if you go to confidencedecoded.com, I've got a whole series to take you through building your confidence level. And that's a big sticking point for a lot of people. When we start talking about fear, we realize that it's our confidence around it. So give that a shot. My podcast, if you're not listening to it, you can type in Jackie Ulmer or Street Smart Wealth on any of the podcast platforms. I have a weekly podcast that I put out there. As I mentioned, next week, we're going to be talking about a morning routine and planning your strategy for 2020. I'm going to be shifting the calls to Mondays. I will send an email out about it. And I'm probably going to move from Zoom into my Facebook group, again, just to repurpose content, to get it out there to the masses, and to also teach you how to be effective with your marketing and make everything that you do count. I'm more than happy to open it up for any questions that anyone has. So you are muted, but you can unmute or type in the chat box if you have a question, a comment, or anything. This is the best time to ask it. And if not, we'll let you go on about your business. Anybody? Questions, comments? And if you're listening to the replay, you can put it in the box below. If you would like even more tips and training, I have a free gift for you over at streetsmartwealth.me. It's my guide, Unleash the Power of Social Selling. If you're ready to stop struggling in your business and develop a sales and social media strategy to attract your ideal clients, team partners, and create the success you dream about, grab the guide right now over at streetsmartwealth.me. You'll find more on my blog at streetsmartwealth.com, as well as my Facebook group, streetsmartwealthschool.com, and follow me on Instagram at Jackie Ulmer. And make sure you learn more about the Street Smart Wealth Academy over at streetsmartwealthacademy.com. I'll see you on the next show.